Check, check, 1 2 1 2. For the people that's going to watch this on the playback, you're tuned in with your host, Deshaun, one half of this platform, Enveonline, where we do our best to curate and discuss hip hop and leave all the other foolishness behind. And today I have the honor of sitting with a legend who's been within this beautiful culture of hip hop longer than 35 years, not just as a producer, but a dope MC as well. Got the honor of talking with the legendary Diamond D. Diamond
Yo,
D,
man,
how's your
what's
day
going
going?
on, D? So far, so good. How about yours?
Hey, man, I'm blessed. Outside of this, one thing I say, man, I'm a grandfather first, a husband second, and everything else comes last, man. So as long as my family is straight, I'm good.
No doubt. All right.
So I wanted to get into this because the last couple interviews I did, it feels like we're going through somewhat of a renaissance today in hip hop. And one thing I explained last time when I'm looking around, one thing that feels a little different is it feels like from the 90s and 80s, it was all led by younger folks. They held the torch. But today, past 2020, let me be honest with you guys, feels like our upperclassmen, our veterans within hip hop is carrying the torch of hip hop. How do you feel about that? How do you feel that the upperclassmen is holding up the torch for hip hop in today's renaissance of what's
I just
going
think
on?
it's a resurgence in the sound that we curated. Back in the early '90s. Artists such as myself are putting out projects. Redman dropped the project. Smith and Wesson dropped the project. LL Cool J dropped the project. Common and Pete Rock. So it just seems like it's the right atmosphere now. They say everything goes full circle. So here we are.
And everybody you name, like, you guys don't sound outdated. And I'm not just saying that because I spoke to a couple of you guys and I'm fans. You guys sound with the times. So when Redman is freestyling, he sounds like today, but a sharper version. When I'm listening to you on your albums and you talking your stuff, you sound up to date. Same thing with Smith and Wesson and so forth. So, man, you guys sound amazing. Before I get into the questions, this is what I like to do for artists. Like, I really don't like to stream, man. It takes up a lot of memory in my phone. So last year I started buying your art. I started buying the CDs, the cassettes, the vinyls. That's another thing with this renaissance. Buying physical music is back in style. So I got to ask you, because you put out the Diam Piece 3, the duel that's on Fat Beats.
Yeah.
Diam Piece, I'm going to get that correct. Diam Piece 3, the duo. Out on Fat Beats. So how does that feel that the record labels kind of lied and said streaming, and now Cats is back to pitting out?
Well, now we know the labels was fucking working with the streaming companies. I think the other day Snoop said he was leaving, specifically Spotify. How the fuck you get 1 billion streams and you get a check for like
$40,000.
You know what I mean? That's 1 billion streams. But to go back to what you said about vinyl, and then and physical copies, I think people are getting back to wanting to own the art. You sign up for a streaming service, you don't pay your monthly bills, it's gone.
It's gone.
You don't own nothing. You know what I mean? So it's a good thing that the consumers are getting back to wanting to own the art. So
yeah, and I just feel it's important for us to support you guys, man. If we really believe in y'all like we say we do, come on, man. What's $30? That's 2 value meals at McDonald's. That's nothing,
major.
Man. And to go into that, one thing that you talked about in your interviews is that you started your own record company, Diamond Mine Records, where you're putting out your art. So there was kind of a discussion going on, and I'm not going to mix names in the discussion because I'm not looking for any clout or views or whatever. But the discussion was about being an independent artist versus a major artist. So I don't know if you heard that little discussion.
Shit been going on for 20 years comparing the two.
Yeah, so you have a unique view. Like, you were signed, but now you're independent through your own record label. Can you talk about the power of independence, or at least how it suits you as an artist?
It's less people involved. The major labels now are just basically banks. They front you in advance, and then you got to pay that advance back. But you paying it back, you might get maybe a few cents on the dollar for each for each album. But the rest of that money goes straight to the label. So you got to pay the label back whatever advance they give you out of the little bit of money you getting off of each copy sold or whatever. So it's crazy, And depending on your advance, you may never get out of it. Unless you go, 5, 6, 7 times platinum. But really, it's a racket, for lack of better words. If I sign
math,
you,
man.
right, and we selling the CDs, let's say for $10, right? Let's say I give you a $300,000 advance. So out of that $10, let's go even better. Let's say you get $1 per sale. And it's not even that, but let's say I was being generous and I say, you know what? I'm gonna give him $1. The other $9 gonna go in my pocket. I'm the label. That 300,000, you got to recoup out of your dollar.
It's gonna take so long. That
don't
math
make
don't
sense.
make sense.
It's been that way forever. And somehow the labels got away. They got away from wanting to press up vinyl. It was an extra cost to them.
So you really think they was in and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll be direct. Do you think, as you said, they was in cahoots with the streaming, with the technology?
Maybe not initially, but I mean, UMG and some of the other two big labels, Warner and Sony, they all own shares of some of these streaming platforms. Of
I
course,
had no idea about that one.
Of course, so yeah.
So one thing I appreciate, we talked offline and whatnot, is you said, I don't want to live off my past work. And you even said that in your interviews. I watched the Sway interview and so forth, and you talked about in the album called Rear View. You said it was a metaphor. Great album too. Listen to it. And you was talking some fly stuff on there, man. Like life is what you make it and so forth. But I appreciate that because certain artists can't see for today. They telling you, I went platinum back in 1995 and we in 2025. So one thing I got to commend you on is how hard you worked today to continue to put out. So when I listened to the album,
which one?
The intro.
Okay.
Rear View. Yeah. I want to talk about Rear View for a few questions. The intro to Rear View is a Chris Rock is giving you your flowers. Right, yeah. He's saying he's been put onto your music and he had no idea.
Dave Chappelle turned them on.
And yeah, man, and that had to be crazy to hear that. Pretty much praising you as one of the GOATs. So do you embrace, because you've been in hip hop for 30 years and not just been in hip hop but contributed majorly, do you embrace that title as a GOAT?
Yeah.
I'm glad you're talking it, man, because
I mean, I put a lot of work in. I started off some people's who have major careers now. I started a movement with DITC back in the days. I won a Grammy Award. And for me to be in the game that long, and as we speak, to have a joint that I produced on Busta Rhymes' new album. All these years later, to have a joint with Benny the Butcher, 38 Special, Conway the Machine, they're all on the song too. So I'm still here. I'm still here doing my thing.
another track on there, Life Is What You Make It. It was a powerful track because I believe in
Mm,
manifestation. And it was talking about manifestation. You know, your words is powerful. You can make
right.
anything happen. Have you achieved everything you wanted in life? And it doesn't have to be in hip hop. I'm talking about yourself as a person.
That's hard to say, but I might say no. Um,
Okay.
I've done a couple of movie soundtracks, but that's something that I would like to, try to dive deep into a little more.
Mm.
Um,
I've been hearing certain people. I think it was an interview. I forgot this guy's name. He's on the West Coast. He talked about getting music synced. Is that a different type of game with the syncing of music soundtracks versus putting music out in albums?
licensing,
If you care to elaborate.
licensing. That's why it's important for you to hold on to your publishing. You know, maybe last year sometime I got a check out of the blue for $10,000, and that's because Nike they wanted to use Flojo in one of their commercials. That song was recorded in '93, so you got to understand,
You making racks like that 30 something years
crazy.
later?
You know what I mean? So that's why owning your publishing is important, and try to hold on to it if you can.
Power of
Right,
independence.
but some of those publishing offers, they might offer you, two or three or four or $500,000, um, and you may be in a spot where you can use that bread right then and there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
that.
fault nobody for doing what you got to do, because this industry don't give you shit. But if you do a publishing deal, make sure your song revert back to you after a certain period. You know what I mean? So this way they
So
don't own your shit forever.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And again, I don't want to get into naming names because I think the message is bigger. Like, I don't want nobody accuse me of saying I'm trying to get clicks bait. But there was an artist saying that he went to go sell his catalog and he found out that he didn't own his masters. And it was like the album came out 20 years ago, it didn't revert back to you. So that's important that somebody like you tells the younger artists that, to look
Yeah,
out for that.
if you're in a space, or if you're in a position to hold on to your publishing, I would recommend that, definitely. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna name this next segment "Outworking the
All
Competition"
right.
because pretty much, like, I got to be honest, like, when you named yourself, you named Redman and others, but you specifically, you're putting in some serious work, and I had to go do my research in general. Outside of the production albums that you put out, the series that you put out, the duo,
Initium.
um the
Right.
initial, it's a
Yeah.
Latin
No doubt.
phrase.
No
So,
doubt. Mm.
you know, um you're also shooting music videos. So
Mm.
like you're doing more than just putting out an album saying, yo, go check it on Spotify. You're doing the marketing on top of that. So
That's right.
with everything that you're doing, and then you also talked about 2025 starting off with you producing a banger on the Awakening album. Certain people would say like, yo, you're already cemented. Your name's already in the hieroglyphs. What's giving you this motivation to go on this second run? Because you're working your ass off.
Just being competitive, and when you're independent, you got to go twice as hard.
Mm.
I made it my business, you know, to try to shoot a video for every song on the last project. And I shot videos for half the songs on Initium. I do that because it's always good to have a visual. You know what I mean? And it's content. You know, people love the songs, but still we want to see these videos. You know what I mean? And then what's out there? Revolt and BET Jams. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You putting your stuff out
Yeah.
there, your Vivo, and I'm like, yo, that, and then just to put in perspective, like all these people don't live in the same area. It's not like they all live close to you. And I don't know people personal business,
Right.
but it's like you got to
Yeah.
get people from
Yep.
Philly, yada
Or
yada
get off your
yada.
ass and fly to them.
And And that's what I'm saying. You outworking the competition at your
Mm.
age. And it's like younger cats is not. I see younger cats in their 20s and 30s that's not doing that.
Yeah.
They got an album out. It's like, where the videos at? Oh, yo, I did one. You did one video?
It's not important. Not important to them. Not to bash anybody. People do what they do. But I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to make sure I had videos ready. And I dropped a video for the Sound of New York, TSNY.
Can I
Of
cut in,
course.
man? I think when I first contacted you, I said thank you because you got one of my favorite rappers to come back, and that person is Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was some
Yeah.
whatever his personal life
Right.
is. He'll rap and then stop rapping. I was like, God damn, he got Saigon. That made me want to listen to the whole album just because you did that. I'm like, he's sitting next to Saigon, man. Like, now I really want to buy the shit.
Right. And that kind of like was the lob for him to drop his album he did with Buck Wild. So everything right on time.
I ain't even know that.
And I didn't even know about it. I found out when him and Buck were close to dropping it. I knew from speaking to Buck that they were working on a project. I didn't know how far along they were.
Mm.
But yeah, shit like that. And when you saw the video, it made you go, okay. What the fuck else is on this album?
Nah, I had to look into it. Yeah, man. That's impeccable point guard skills, man. If you play basketball in your younger days, you throwing them alleys. That was beautiful. Yeah. Real quick, you talked about working with Busta Rhymes on the album, and both you guys I consider GOATs or people you were pitting in Mount Rushmore because you guys got 30 years in it. You had a chance to work with a lot of artists, many artists, but with Busta Rhymes specifically, who continues to show up and show out in hip hop. Right. If you can, a few words from you about his character as an artist and as a person.
High energy. Dope rhymes. He has a good ear for beats. He's the consummate artist. And I've worked on a few of Busta Rhymes albums over the years. And every time we get together, magic happens. But Bus, working with Bus, he's one of my favorite artists to work with. For those very same reasons. You know what I mean? And you look at him, he came out with Leaders of the New School. And 30 years later, he's out working a lot of artists also.
That's what I'm noticing.
I mean, this dude drops videos. Shit, he inspired me to get busy on on the videos. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's important that we all push each other. If you're from that era, and you're still thinking about being competitive or whatever. But I mean, hey, at this point, we already have our fan base. So I make music for my fan base. You know what I mean? If some of the younger people hear it and they're attracted to it, it's even better. But I don't go in the studio to make music for teenagers.
Okay.
You feel me? That's that's just where I'm at with it. No disrespect to anybody, but that's just where I'm at with it. I talk to my generation.
We listening too, man. And now I want to get into the series, the Diam Piece 3. We're going to start off with Initium. So for the people out there that don't know, the word Initium is a Latin phrase that means the beginning, if I'm correct from my research. So I want to touch on the beginning just for a second. In the beginning, you credited legendary Jazzy J with giving you a lot of game. For the game that you got from Jazzy J, how did you apply it to your career and how is it relevant today?
Jay taught me the art of production. Back when I first got in the game, I was signed to Strong City Records. I was in a group called the Ultimate Force. And, basically watching him put records together. Jay's a drummer too. So that's why, that's part of the reason why my drums sound the way they do. Just watching him work his magic. not just loop drums, but to take each sound and play it out across the MP or whatever you're using. But yeah, back then he taught me the art of production. Not really standing over me and saying, "Yo, this is for that, and that's for that," but just me being in all of those sessions. When he was working with Grand Poobah on the first Brand Nubian album, I was in a lot of those sessions, just soaking up knowledge, and then I accumulated enough money to get my own sampling machine and all of that. That's when I started on Stunts, Blunts, and Hip Hop, along with Jazzy J. So yeah, I owe Jay a lot in terms of showing me the ropes of production, the rudiments at least.
That's peace. That's peace. Now, my favorite record on Initium is the Kings with KRS-One. And the way that he was flipping your name, doing the name flips of Diamond in it, over your beat was insane, man. So, just want to ask a question: as both you guys being legends from the Bronx and having a song called The Kings, how does it feel to still be able to represent Bronx culture within hip hop from two kings?
Man, whatever I do, I'm gonna represent the BX. It's a given. But I will say this, yo, that was one of my favorite joints on that album. And again, me and Chris, we go back. We have a working relationship. I produced joints on him in the past. Build your skills. What I know. Track called All Year. I was involved with the Rapture that he did, that KRS-One did, because they sampled Soul Clap, which I produced. You know what I mean? So every time me and Chris connect, good things come out of it. A lot of people said when they heard him on that track, it reminded them of the old Chris. But I tell them, dude, he never fell off. But I guess just the aura of it.
Not a verse.
The aura of it. You know what I mean? And the way he attacked the track. Yeah. So
he got busy on that.
Most deaf.
Another track that caught my attention because the brother's no longer with us is a track Death Before Dishonor. Rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop. We lost a titan within hip hop last year at an early age.
Yes, sir.
If you can you speak to how did that track come about? And if you have any words for Fat Man Scoop, you're free to share them.
Me and Scoop, we went to the same high school. We graduated together. We used to sit at the lunch table and bang on the tables and spit our rhymes, and dream about making it big one day. And then we both did that, separately, but we both achieved that. Yeah, rest in peace, Isaac Freeman. That wasn't good. And then the way he passed, rocking the mic, rocking the stage,
doing what he loved.
It was crazy. That shit bothered me a lot. But hey, and you know what? We were about to shoot a video for that song. And then boom, he left us.
Rest in peace, Scoop, man. Yeah. That definitely, like I said, that song caught my attention. So when I kept listening to the Diam Piece series, one thing that I'm noticing, obviously you already know this because you're so gifted with your production, is your talent as a producer with picking the collaborations to fit on your beats. Like I'm like, why did he pick this artist with this artist? But then I'm listening to him like, oh, it goes together.
Right.
So can you talk about the genius of what's working upstairs when you sending these beats out or flying the people or flying them in to collaborate on records? Because
Well, you
on
know,
on the Diam Piece duo, you did it flawlessly on that second one, man.
Thank you. I match up the combinations that I would like to hear. And so far so good. Those combinations have been resonating well with the listeners. But yeah, that's about it, D. Like, I might slide A the track, and then me and my team will go with, damn, who would we like to see on this? And I try to pick combinations that are unique. For an example, the new video, Casket Fresh.
PD Crack was sliding on that, man.
Man.
Oh, my God.
You think about it. You would never hear PD Crack and Cardinal Official and your man Chip Fool blazing the joint. And all three of them are still spitting crazy on the mic.
They got crazy on that.
So that's just one example. But that's what I try to do with all my Diam Piece albums. The Diam Piece 1, the Diam Piece 2. And for the third one, I had all these songs. So I said, you know what? I'm not releasing no album with 30 songs. Nobody going to listen to that shit. So I said, you know what? I'm going to chop it up into 3 parts. Initium, Duo, and the last one to be Tria, which should drop this summer. 1, 2, and 3. Plus, it gives the songs a chance to breathe on their own.
Mm-hmm.
An album with 30, 35 joints is crazy nowadays. I mean, who's gonna listen to that shit? It's too much.
Yeah, that's that Chris Brown. They try and do that Chris Brown thing where he dropped the album with 40 records on it and so forth. But
right, I mean,
it sounds better with what you did.
It might have worked for Chris, but you can do that, or you can say, you know what? Every 5 months, I'm going to release a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gives you 15 months of content. Rather than drop one album, 5 or 6 months later, it's dead. So, yeah. That's partly why I'm here talking with you.
There, you pretty much got this. The strategy you did to the Diam Pieces, that's what's up, especially with the videos. So, I want to touch on this record because it leads to another conversation with DJs in hip hop, and it's called "My DJ Spits Better Than Yours." Again, off the Diam Piece. And there's a reason why that caught my attention, because there was a discussion. Again, I don't want to name names because I'm not trying to start no internet controversy.
Nah, you can name names. Fuck
it. Well, pretty much because people will say I'm trying to start something for clicks and views. So I'll just give a general statement. The 3 DJs were going into mixtape DJs, and they were talking about the top 5 DJs, and they skipped over 2 important. They skipped over Funk Flex, because I interviewed Cool DJ Red Alert, and he said Funk Master Flex popularized the tape. And then DJ Doo-Wop. I'm like, how come nobody named Doo-Wop? Because not just a DJ, he's a rapper. He's a dual threat like you.
Yeah.
And they showed that within this record. So what was your thought?
And also on those the Toka brothers, what are they called? Him and the Diaz brothers. I'm sorry.
The Diaz brothers.
Him and Tony Touch. They released a few projects, but yeah, WAP is nice on the mic.
So what was your thought process when you got Kid Capri and WAP and all them together and let them spaz out on that, man?
It was just a good concept, because none of them get credited for their rhyming skills enough.
That's a fact.
But they all can spit. So I said, no, this is a no-brainer. You know what I mean? And I shot out the Kid Capri verse first. I got him locked in. And then I went after Doo-Wop and my man Infamous Amadeus. So that's how that came about. And yeah, that video came out really dope too.
So me and you are along the same lines about Doo-Wop not getting enough credibility. If you can, real quick, from your perspective, where would you rate rap? Where would you rate DJ Doo-Wop on a scale of 1 to 10?
As a what?
As a
As a,
dual
as a
threat.
DJ or as
Yeah.
an MC?
Both.
A 10 and a 10.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. You know.
I want to go back to that track you talked about with Nems, Saigon, Tons, and so forth. Right. I thought it was important for you to do that track and the way it sounded, because I talked about this. I went to a underground show not too long ago, last month, and it was the first show I went to for hip hop since my daughter was born a few years ago. And when I went to shows pre-COVID, a lot of DJs, they were playing out of town stuff. So the sound of New York was kind of lost. When I went to this show, the underground DJ Anthony Mace, he was actually keeping it New York.
Good.
He ain't played nothing but Nems, 38 Special. Like, it was all underground New York artists. So when I listened to the record that you specifically did with them, it brought the feeling back to New York. So I wanted to ask you, was that the intention with getting those MCs to like keep the sound? Because NYC and New York State in general, like, the sound has been coming and going. So it felt good to hear a legendary producer like yourself get these New York artists and let them keep it New York.
Right. Well, you know, first I had to bless them with a track that sounds like New York. You know what I mean? And you nailed it. You know, that's why I named that song TSNY, the sound of New York. You know, New York should sound like New York.
That's a fact.
You know, I mean, but the other side of the coin is there's nothing wrong with wanting to expand your sound. You know, as artists, we all go through that. But it should be a balance. You know, you shouldn't drive around New York and cut the radio on and don't hear New York.
That was happening for the longest, man. I know you know that.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, I'm grateful for the DJs, you know, who were spinning that shit. You know? And yeah. That track right there, that was the first track off the album. So that kind of set the tone, for lack of better words. Shouts out to Nim, shouts out to Prayer, shouts out to Tons, and our man Saigon. Yeah.
You talked about getting love in New York from the DJs, because you also talked about the record being spent with you and Sadat X, who you've been working with from day number one. Can you talk about how good does it feel for the DJs to still support you 30 years later? Because certain DJs in New York might say, oh, hey, you know, your time came and went, but they still spinning your records. You know, so if you're free to shout any of them out if you want to.
Of course, Funkmaster Flex. You know, Static Selector. You know, Lord Sear. DJ Infamous out of Virginia. DJ Epps out of Florida. DJ Big X out of Atlanta. Yo, listen, man. It's always good for your music to be receptive and appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's 10 years later, 20 years later, or 30 years later. But the main thing is that people fuck with you because the music is good.
Not because of any antics or what you did in the past.
Not on no pity shit. You know, the music still got to be at a certain level. You know what I mean? And that's what I strive to do on all my joints. Don't nobody play my shit out of pity, because guess what? Nobody owe you a motherfucking thing. People, if the shit is hot and they rock with you, they gonna play it.
And you spitting that shit out here, man.
Hey, listen, you know, Funkmaster Flex, he saw one of my stories where I was playing the Sadat X song in the studio. And Flex said he played that story clip all night.
Mm.
And he just got inspired by it. You know, he was always a Sadat X fan. And you know, He fucks with me, but it was the music and the rhymes that connected with him. And Flex was like, "Listen, Hot 97 is a hip hop station. We're gonna play some hip hop."
Thank you,
He said,
Jesus.
I don't want to diss none of the other artists, but you know what a lot of y'all are doing, I wouldn't call hip hop. He went on like a 10 minute shout out talking about that record and how it made him feel. You know what I mean? Me and Sadat X was like, you know what? That's what's up, because it lets us know that the shit that we're doing is still relevant. There's an audience for it, you know, and sometimes that audience is not served as well as it should be. So I gotta salute Funkmaster Flex for definitely, pumping the gas on that joint, and he's still playing it, you know.
And Sadat X was getting surgical on that, man. He had a line in there or a bar in there that inspired me, because he wasn't ashamed to say in the bar, he said, like, you know, he has a 9 to 5. And I'm like, yo, because I'm listening to little key things. And I'm like,
yeah.
That
and that resonated with Funkmaster Flex too.
Because he's not waiting for
just on some grown man shit.
Yeah, he's not waiting for nobody like, yo, I got a family, you know, I'm still gonna work and not ask for a handout. And the same thing here, because outside of media, yeah, I might make some money in media, but I got a 9 to 5 too. So it resonates with the average man. I got a wife and kids at home, and we got to do what we got to do. So that was definitely what's up. Something you said that caught my attention, because I think a lot of artists can learn from this. You said he watched my story, pretty much alluding to technology use and how it's benefiting you. And one thing I want to commend you on is you're not the grumpy old man saying I don't do technology. You know, my dad is 59. He don't have an email. He don't. If I put a phone in his hand, he don't know what to do with it, because he's 60s from Mississippi. You know, but you embrace technology, and it's really, really benefiting. Can you, if you can, like, could you put a message out there to other artists over the age of 40 that technology is your friend, man, if you use it correctly?
Of course. Well, you know, me being a producer for all these years, I was already into technical advances, production wise. Social media is a great thing if you use it correctly. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would tell anyone over 40, you know, get your social media if you're an artist.
Gotcha.
If you're an artist, you know, if you just a regular dad, you know, Facebook might be for you. No disrespect. But you know, if you're an artist, you definitely got to have a social media presence. You got to. I mean, it's just where things are now, and it's a direct line to your audience. It's a direct line to your audience.
Yeah, man. And, I hope more artists take your advice, because for the longest we heard, oh man, I ain't doing that. And then, okay, you're an artist. We don't know where to get your music from, but can I jump back to the I want to jump back into the Initium, because there's a record on there with 38 Special, and there's a reason why I'm gonna bring up 38 Special. I believe 38 Special is a dual threat like yourself, because he produces outside of rhyming.
Correct.
So
that's why I picked him to rhyme on a joint with me and EA Ski. We're all producers.
And so the question I want to pose to this is, when you see the younger generation following in your footsteps, what advice do you have to offer them when you see producer / MC walking in the steps, walking on the shoulders of a Diamond D?
Man, what advice I can give? Write your own rhymes. Write your own rhymes. You know, but on the flip side, if your man's in them, if their pen game is sharper than yours, and they're on your team, let them do it. But I'm from the era where we wrote our rhymes. Is it a necessity? Absolutely not. It's a preference. But nobody can ever say they wrote anything I spat.
Talk that.
You know what I mean? So again, it's a preference thing. I don't bash nobody for doing what they do, but if you're gonna be an MC, then be an MC. I don't want to name names either, but there are artists who have sold millions of records and they didn't write their rhymes. It's still a business.
Got it.
And that's why I said if somebody on your team, if their pen game is nicer than yours, then why not? We can all get money together.
Can I throw in something?
Of course.
Make sure you give them writers credit and don't do no bozo shit.
Of course.
I'm saying that because we all heard stories.
That's where the publishing comes in at. You don't want to write a song. If you on a team, you should get publishing. It's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give dogs 20%, 25%, and I take 75%. Being greedy.
Heard some horror stories, man.
If you got co-producers, let them eat too.
So within his Diam Piece series, like I said, you got crazy collaborations. Is there a collaboration that you haven't done yet that's in your head that you would like to bring to life, or do we have to wait for that on version 3 on the trio?
Man, I mean, I always got combinations that I would like to see come to fruition. I'll circle back to that because I can have a different answer every fucking day if you ask me.
Got it.
You know what I mean? But yeah. Well, let me just put this out there. Just for just for the sakes of the classics and the legends. If I was able to get a joint with Rakim, Kool G Rap, and Big Daddy Kane, that would be crazy.
That'd be insane.
Shit like that. You know what I mean? Again, with a combination like that, obviously you're focusing on a specific, bars, and you're focusing on a specific age group. And there's nothing wrong with that. The same way you just went, got millions of people who would do the same thing.
Yep.
So that's one combo I can toss out there real quick. That I would like to do that someday.
So for me as a fan of hip hop and as a student, when I listened to this, I saw a larger picture, and maybe you already thought of it. So I'm just gonna throw this out there. When I'm listening to the whole series of what you're putting together and what you have to come, the music sounds incredible. It doesn't sound outdated, and there's a bunch of legends on there that have fan bases. So new artists. So you combine the older with the new, with a whole catalog of music that you're still building. So in my head as a fan, the first thing that I said was, I would pay to see this live. So the bigger picture for me as a fan of hip hop is, I hope there's some producers out there that have a vision that will reach out to Diamond D and do some correct business with you, because I believe that this could go on tour. Everybody has fan bases. Europe, hip hop is big in Europe. Like, there should be European promoters reaching out to you saying, yo, we need to work something out. Is that something you thinking about when you putting this together, or is that something you would like to do with this?
Of course. I got to just get the right sponsors involved. And if the money is there, even if I can't bring everybody on
just
an
like
album,
a couple people.
Right. You know what I mean? Something like that I'm definitely interested in. And I might have my team put together
nice package.
And see if we can get the right type of funds, to put those shows on. That would be ill.
Yeah, so when I put this out there, we gotta put this in the universe. Domestic promoters, if you're listening, reach out to Diamond D. He's online, do correct business. And hip hop is global, so hopefully there's some European promoters or some Asian promoters that hit you and do some proper business. Because to me, that would just be a full circle moment for what you're doing with the Diam Piece series and for the artist itself.
Right.
More importantly, the
Right.
artist to keep this thing going, man.
Yes, sir.
So you talked about the trio coming this summer. Now, with me listening to these projects that you're putting out, I hear elevation. You started here with Initium, and then it got crazy with Duo. How do you outdo Duo, man? That, like, I'm gonna be honest, man, that was crazy. So how are you gonna outdo it with the third installment?
Watch me work.
Talk.
Watch me work. You know, I'm my hardest critic. Shit don't sound right, I'ma scrap it and do something new. But and that's the goal. Every album should be better.
I heard the elevation.
You know, the first Diam Piece album came out in 2014. The second, the Diam Piece 2, came out 2019. And you know, that was a little better. People said it sounded better sonically.
Okay.
You know, I changed engineers. But still, my point is, you know, the first Diam Piece, that was 2014. The Diam Piece 2, 2019. Right after that, I produced the Talib Kweli album, Gotham. Right after that, The Rear View. Right after that, Initium.
Hey, this is getting better.
Right after that, Duo. So, yo, let your music and your work speak for you. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you leave this earth, that's what's going to speak for you.
So I think I saw one of your posts on social media where you said you already got some videos in the tuck for Tria. Like you already bagged up some videos for this, man.
With Tria, I'm starting.
Okay.
For Duo, I got videos for every song except the Camp Low joint. You know, and Hot 97 is actually playing that song.
Another underrated duel. They from the Bronx, correct?
Yup, they from the Bronx.
Homeboy was getting busy on that.
I couldn't get them to come together and do it, so I said, all right, cool. Well, it's a 10-track album. I got 9 videos. So either way, I'm up. You know what I mean? So this is where we're at.
Now, you just said something. You said, you know, you got to let the music talk for you because you want that to be your legacy. I'm going to speak positive because I don't want to say if you will pass. I believe, you know, you're going to live for a very long time. But as of right now, with the music that you're currently putting out, what do you want your legacy to be? Or do you not care to think about that right now because you're still working?
Nah, yo, I want my legacy to be when you speak my name, you know, first of all, my production. You know, my shit has always been sharp and it's only gotten sharper. Like I said, I'm my hardest critic. You know, I'm also a spitter. You know, yo, been doing this shit since Stunts, Blunts, and Hip Hop. Writing my own rhymes. You know, for the first 2 Diam Pieces, a lot of my fans are like, "Damn, D, you know, on these albums, you know, you rhyme here, you rhyme there. You need a whole joint from you." And that led me to go in the studio and put The Rear View together. You know, which I feel is my best solo album. I know people are going to say Stunts, Blunts, and Hip Hop, and
like you said, that's in the past.
You know, which is a classic, but you can't compare the way I'm spitting now to the way I was spitting in '92. You just can't. You know,
like they say, man, if you're a man and you went from 20 and 40 and didn't learn nothing, then you really just didn't learn nothing, man.
The fuck
from
was
20
you
to
doing?
40. So you would expect an MC like yourself for your tools to continue to get sharp. Now that you said that, what do you think is your strong point now that maybe wasn't your strong point back in Stunts, Blunts, back in 92?
I'm a better MC. It matters now. When I got that deal with Stunt Busting Hip Hop, I was heavy into
Okay.
production. And the deal kind of fell into my lap. I didn't go looking for a deal. I was producing demos for an artist the label wanted to sign. And I just happened to rhyme on one of the demos. So the label, Chemistry Mercury, they was like, well, yo, we come down to the office. We want to talk to you. So I'm like, oh, shit. I'm about to get a bag for these motherfucking beats. When I get down there in the A&R, Brian Chin, he said, we want to offer you a deal. I was like, oh, shit. That's
Time to
what's
go
up.
up.
You know what I mean? Of course, I felt a certain type of way because the only reason I'm in this office is because I was doing demos for your man who y'all was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about signing. But I don't know. I guess I kind of outshined him without even trying to. You know what I mean? So that's why I say that deal kind of fell into my lap. And I wasn't about to turn that shit down.
Not at that
Hell
time.
fucking no.
So, nah, man, I like to ask this to a lot of artists, people in general, and this has to do outside of hip hop. So, March, for people who don't know, is Women's History Month. So, I like to pay homage to the woman. If you have any woman within your life, whether it's a mother, whether it's family members or whoever that you want to shout out that made a positive impact on you, you're free to do so.
My mom, of course, my mom, Regina, she raised me. I had it. My father was around. He was in and out of jail, bugging the fuck out and all that. But my mom, she's been my biggest cheerleader. Putting up with all the fucking music in the house when she had to get up the next morning to go to work. Putting up with the weed smoke. I grew up in Forest Projects. I remember when I was like, well, how can I word this? She allowed me to smoke weed in the privacy of my
Respect.
bedroom.
A lot of our parents did it.
But now that I'm older and I get the knowledge, she put up with the music and the weed because she knew where I was at. I was in the house. Everybody's like, yeah, your mom is cool. Your mom is cool. Yeah, my mom was cool, but she did that
Wanted you to be
because,
safe.
right. As long as she heard the music in that room, she knew I was in the house. At least for that time. I still ran the streets, but I always had the option to go back to my room, and do what I do, create music and DJ. I was a DJ back then, strictly. I wasn't making beats. I wasn't rhyming back then. But to touch on that, a lot of our dope producers, we all started off as DJs. Just Blaze, Dr. Dre, Knots Raw.
DJ Premier, Molly Mall.
DJ Premier, of
Pete
course,
Rock.
Havoc, Pete Rock, Jay
Rest in
Dilla.
peace.
Yes. So most prolific producers, we all started off as DJs. Lord Finesse, another triple threat, from my crew. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Salute to your mother and salute to all the moms around the world that make this thing go around for Women's History Month. So I'm not going to keep you too long because you definitely dropped some gems on me, man. And we approaching the hour and I know you got greatness to make. So I want to leave off like this. You dropped, the vinyl on Fat Beats. Do you have any more projects that people can look out for so they can purchase it and support you?
Yes, the next installment of the Diam Piece 3 Tria. Like I said, that's gonna drop sometime this summer.
You doing that on Fat Beats as well, or another platform?
Oh no, I rock with Fat Beats. You know, hey, they fair and square. But you know, I've been with them so long. I'm sure most people don't have the deal I have with them. But you know, when it's time to pay, they pay. You know, you can press the vinyl up yourself and then give them the boxes. Now you're not paying manufacturing costs. You're just paying them to just distribute the shit. You just
drop the gem.
So you see, yeah, so you see your money quicker. You know, so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna probably get some 45s pressed up too with some songs.
You just dropped the major gem, man. I look forward to that, man. Diamond D, I'm not gonna keep you too long. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the hip hop conversation, man. And may God continue to bless you with good health so you can keep running circles around this industry. Because right now, you're putting a lot of 30-year-olds to shame with the work ethic, man.
Hey, I appreciate that. You know, I'm still here doing what I love, so I'm making the most of it. You know, but you know, I remember somebody jumped in my comments. They were like, "Yo, D, you out here working like you a new artist.
You ain't got no deal." But real hip hop fans can appreciate that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There it is. You know, you're only going to get out of this game what you put into it. And that's it.
To everybody watching on the playback, I hope you learned something and then picked up a couple gems from Diamond D, because he dropped a lot of wisdom and a lot of jewelry. Till the next time, man, you tune in with your host, Deshaun, a.k.a. Enveonline. And major salute to you, Diamond D. Appreciate you.